All right. Good morning, gurus. Welcome to week 3 of Discover Your Inner Guru. I am so excited to be here and can't believe it's week 3 of 6 already. I would like to just do a little bit of housekeeping before we start. Just a reminder that the Q&A has been moved to Friday at 7 p.m. this week, and it just seemed to work really well. We had a lot more people on it this week, having it in the evening hour for those who work during the day. So we're going to try it one more time since it seemed to work better than the first week. So Friday, mark your calendars at 7 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. So adjust your clock accordingly. If your Pacific time is 6 o'clock, if you're farther out east, then it's 8 o'clock or 9. So, all right, so that's that. If you haven't finished the Reboot and Reset for Success mini course, if you're having any trouble getting onto that or have any questions about it, just let me know before the week gets on too far, because it's really important that you at least do the first step of that course before you kind of move ahead. So continue doing that. Do the homework that you haven't maybe started yet or aren't working on. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just that you're working a little bit as we go, because everything that we're learning kind of layers on each other and builds upon each other. And so I think it'll be really helpful. Can you hear me now? Is that a little better? Kirsten? Does this sound better now? Okay, great. Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, so just continue what you're doing on the homework from the week before. Just do your best. Apply it to how it works for you. Simplify it if you need to. Put a timer on your phone, whatever works for you to remind you to do those things. And obviously reach out to me if you have any questions. I'd like to take a few minutes just to review what we've talked about so far, and so that when we move into the new concept for today, it's not new. It's actually, you can kind of see how it's all going to fit in with everything. So we've talked about in the Reboot and Reset, we've cleared the clutter, you're connecting to your why, and the difference between kind of distinguishing, my brain isn't working today, finding the distinction between an internal versus an external. And just a reminder that the internal why is something that is connected to a deeper place of love for yourself, for God, I guess, or for those you are serving and showing up for. And it also, it just has to come from somewhere deep inside, right? So it's also a motivation to be your highest, best self, okay? External motivations are the voices of the world telling you what you should or shouldn't be. I've got a few people wanting to come in, so we're going to let them in real quick. It's all those shoulds or shouldn't, or I need to, or I have to, right? It might be trying to get that promotion at work. It might be, I don't want someone to be mad at me. So, hey guys, if you aren't muted, will you go ahead and mute yourself so that there's no feedback? Awesome, thank you. Let me know in the chat if you're having trouble hearing me at all, or have any questions. I'll do my best to pay attention. So the internal versus external why is really important to find that distinction, because the external motivations are not going to hold up when push comes to shove, when things get hard, when you're in the thick of it. And so you want to be able to really connect to that internal place of love and wanting to be connecting to your highest best self, so that when things get hard, you can still keep on keeping on, right? And then the third aspect of the Reboot and Reset is clarifying your vision. Now, this is not something that has to be done in the first time you sit down. It's sort of like, I see it as sort of an evolution. It's a playtime, it's an exploration. It's the more you spend time visualizing and sitting with and feeling your vision, the more likelihood that it will come to fruition. And you might find that your vision changes over time, but for now, it's good to just kind of have an idea, a goal of something that you're working towards. And that vision is kind of being created in, we lost Kirsten, there we go. That vision is kind of being created in context of that internal why or motivation. It's that why that is the one thing that can get you up in the morning when nothing else. Okay, so that's what we're dealing with the reboot and reset. So if you haven't done that yet, do go through that, and you access it on the on my website, actually, using the coupon code Team Guru. So just click on the course Reboot and Reset for Success and use the coupon code, and then just follow that. Okay, and then on week 2, we talked about the power of loving what is in the present moment, free of judgment and free of shame, right? And we learned the skill of observation. What does that look like on the most basic level? And we described it as a space of curiosity, a space of exploration, and fascination, you know. So we're just trying to discover, you know, what do we learn? What are we wanting to learn? What's the lesson here? And we kind of went through the 4 different steps of observation, keeping in mind that you can use the steps by, you know, like 1 or 2 might be appropriate in any given moment, and then you might follow up later and do step 3 and 4 when you have more time. And so, but those are the 4 steps of observation are there as a guide for you to kind of help you understand, okay, how can I observe this free of shame or judgment? I like to see life, I think we're often raised in this sort of achievement mentality, right? The world is so much wrapped around achievement and accomplishment and destination mentality in this world, like medals and awards and certificates and, you know, dossiers. My husband's building his dossier. He just made tenure at BYU, and he has this long list of accomplishments and achievements that sort of make him reputable or, you know, worthy of them wanting to keep him on longer, right? However, that's not really what I believe life is all about. Those are really great things, and that might get us from point A to point B when it comes to providing for our family, or maybe they might be stepping stones to realizing our goals and our dreams. But to me, life is not an experience of achievement, rather an experience of learning and growth, which ultimately is the pathway to joy, love, and fulfillment, which is, if we're really honest with ourselves, love and fulfillment and connection and joy, those are the things that we long for most. And oftentimes is the underlying reason why we're doing the achieving things, right? Why we're trying to get more money or a better house or a better car or more accolades or more degrees or whatever it is. It's really because there's this innate need in us to find more love and connection and fulfillment in life. But the fulfillment I'm finding and the joy comes more from the learning and the growth, right? And the getting unstuck, the movement, the flow. We're happiest when we're moving, when we're flowing. And some of us move and flow in different ways, in different energies from each other, right? And that's okay. There's no right or wrong in that. It's just different. But we all have kind of the similar things in common, where we want love, we want connection, we want joy and fulfillment, and we want movement. I believe that as divine beings, we have an innate desire to create. And so the space of creation, learning, growth, that's what life is all about from what I've learned. And you can get your own answer on that. It's not about achievement. It's not about doing so. Everything, this whole idea of observation, free of shame or judgment, it just opens your eyes. It opens up the possibilities. It clears the clutter of the energy that doesn't serve the highest good, so that you can see the lesson, so that you can learn more, gain more information, so that you have more power to create what you want, right? So it's pretty straightforward and simple. So what are the steps of observation? Stop and breathe. This is all about bringing balance to the parasympathetic system, that fight or flight that might come into play when you're in trigger mode, when you're experiencing a heightened emotion. And so you want to just stop and breathe and bring oxygen to the brain. And just on the most scientific, physical, practical level, you need to bring some kind of balance to the body and to the brain so that you can think more clearly. Number 2, excuse me, is to connect with what is true. And we've talked a lot this week. In the Q&A, we went into a little more depth, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this today because I feel like it warrants more attention, is the distinction between what's real and what's true. And now there's value in connecting to what's real in the moment, because it's important to acknowledge what you're feeling and what you're experiencing, regardless of whether it's based in truth or not. Because until you can acknowledge that, it's going to scream at you and want to be heard, and it's just going to kind of muddle the space and the energy and make it more, it's going to just muddy the waters a little bit. So you're not able to really see clearly what is the lesson is there for you to learn. And so the first thing would be to connect to what's real, acknowledge that, love on it, right? And that's kind of that principle of loving what is when you're connecting to what's real and true. Right now, I feel really angry. And I'm angry at so-and-so because they showed up this way. And it might not, or because they think this about me. And it might not be actually true that they think those things. And it might not be totally true that they showed up the way that you perceived they did. But at first, you're acknowledging what feels real in the moment, okay? And then gradually you'll kind of connect to what is actually true and sort that out. And we're going to delve into that a little bit deeper today, later. And then step 3 is to make a conscious decision of reaction. And this might be just simply that, okay, I'm going to choose not to yell at this person like I normally would. It might choose that you think a different thought. Like before, as you connected to what's true, you maybe realized that, the belief about myself that I'm not enough isn't really true. And so I'm going to make a conscious decision to choose what I believe is true and what really is true. And so that choice, that of reaction, might be, I choose that I'm enough, or I'm more than enough, or I am of value and of worth. And it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. What matters is that I know that for myself. And so you might choose a new belief or a new thought that serves you better, that is more grounded and rooted in truth than what felt real or what was not true before. And then step 4 is to connect to inspired thought and take action. Now, keep in mind that step 4 might come later. You might not have time in the moment to kind of fully throw yourself into this, stillness and quiet to know what the inspired thought is. And in the beginning, and you're kind of new at learning how to listen to those answers and how to connect to inspired thought, it might feel like it takes longer. And so be patient with this step, because it's a skill that you're going to develop over time, okay? And eventually you're going to get so good at it. And some of you might already be really good at listening to inspired thought because you're already clear on how you get your answers. And that's awesome. And you're just a little bit, you've got a little bit more to work with there. And so it can be just as simple as, okay, what's my next step? And then I just listen for that answer and I go with it. And we're looking for just that breadcrumb. You just need the next breadcrumb. You don't need to know the whole picture. And last week we talked a lot about human nature and how, we want to make sense of everything. We want to have all the answers and we want to see the whole picture. Well, life is kind of like building a puzzle. We give it a piece at a time. And eventually it unfolds. The picture unfolds for us, and it's always beautiful. It is. It just always will be beautiful. And oftentimes something that you won't aspects. I'm looking, someone's trying to.
What was number 4 again? Just brief.
Okay, number 4 is connect to inspired thought and take action. Okay. So
Kara,
I might, go ahead.
I'm not meaning to interrupt your flow, but your sound, I can hear you, but your sound is not the best. I don't know how your recording is going to sound, but I've never heard you sound like this. Usually it's just really clear.
Yeah. No, it's because my computer is jacked up
Oh,
right now, and I'm using my phone as the speaker.
oh. Well, it is what it is then. We can hear you. It's just not the best sound, but it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay, thank you for the feedback, and I'm sorry. Hopefully it'll be fixed soon. Okay, is this a little bit better? I'm going to hold my phone closer to my mouth. Okay, great. All right, so those are the steps of observation. And one more note on inspired thought and taking action. It might be something as simple as, okay, I realize that my husband really doesn't believe I'm dumb. And the truth is I'm intelligent, and I choose to believe that I'm intelligent. So you made that conscious choice of how to react, right, and what to choose for yourself. And then you might connect to inspired thought, and you might hear, go and give him a hug, or go and apologize, or something like that. There might be something like that in order to kind of shift the energy and making it right, especially if there was sort of a discord or a hurt that happened with another person. So those are just some examples. So today, we're going to delve into, I guess, a deeper understanding of this space of observation. And I'm calling it awareness and discernment, okay? And we're going to kind of take these steps of observation a little bit farther. Before that, though, I want to talk about awareness. And there's a quote that I have in my Reiki manuals that I just love, and I've just taken a piece of it to apply to here. It's not the whole entire quote, but it's a quote by Frank Petter. And he says that awareness is the master key. It opens all doors and gives everything you do, think, feel, and perceive a totally different quality. With awareness, it does not matter so much what you do, but how you do it. When one works with awareness, the teaching begins to have a life of its own, and instead of merely passing on technical knowledge, you enter the world of transmission. The spark jumps from one candle to another. And I love this because, you know, this isn't just about us. This is not just about us being our best selves, because ultimately how we show up in life and what we choose, and it affects everyone else around us. You know, first it's going to affect those that we love the most, and you know, our children and our spouses that we live with, that we're more closely in contact with. But we have a real opportunity here to change the vibrational frequency of the world. And I feel like that's what's needed here. You know, the world is hurting so deeply. There's so much darkness. There's so much chaos. And how do we begin to raise the vibrational frequency of the planet? You know, how do we make a difference? And it has to start with ourselves, right? Okay, so I wanted to kind of go over some aspects of this awareness and discernment. And I'm going to start with discernment. And these are the things that I have found most important to kind of address in this space to kind of help me be as effective as I possibly can. With the idea of discernment is you're trying to kind of figure out what's truth, you know, truth versus false. You know, you're trying to discern what is truth for you, and what's going to be for the highest good. Okay, and in this space of observation, without shame or judgment, you're wanting to really get clear on, one, what's false versus true, right? What's really true? What can you be 100% certain is true in this moment? The next aspect of discernment is refining what feels real into what is absolute truth. And if you were on the Q&A, this might be a bit of a repeat for you, and sorry, not sorry, because I feel like it's so important that we need to talk about it. over and over again, and that repetition is important. So when you're refining what, the first aspect is to disconnect with, all right, what feels real right now, all right? I'm feeling really irritable right now because my kids didn't do the dishes when I asked them to. And, they don't respect me. And I'm kind of going with all the thoughts and all the feelings that are coming. And I really don't like that they don't respect me. And they don't respect me a lot. And this is why. And it might go on and on and on, because those things need to get a voice. But at some point, I will want to discern and get to the real core root of the truth here. And so what is absolute truth? So once I get all the things that are real out in front of me, it might help to kind of write it out or just say it out loud. I'm an external processor, but some people process internally better, or maybe writing it out is better. And so just taking some time to kind of ponder and think, okay, but as you're observing what feels real, and you become more awakened and aware of what's true and what isn't, you might start to feel that judgment want to come in, because it's like, oh, I shouldn't feel that way. That's not really true. And, that shame and judgment is just really persistent, and it really wants to come in often. And so you just kind of have to periodically put that to the side, right? And say, all right, okay, I'm observing that there's more shame here. All right. And honestly, just saying the words, that's interesting, or, oh, I'm fascinated by that. It just changes the energy of it. You might say, oh, that's interesting. I'm still really feeling a lot of shame here. Okay, that's all right. That's just what is right now, right? So even though it might have been there, changing the verbiage and how you see it will change the energy of that. Okay, so as you're connecting to real versus truth, you kind of like either in your mind, in your heart, or on paper, you kind of get it all out, all that feels real. And then you just take it bullet point by bullet point. Okay, well, I'm irritated. Yep, that's true. I'm definitely irritated right now. Okay, that's 100% truth. and then the next bullet point might be, my children don't respect me. Can I be 100% true certain that that's true? No, I probably can't. And so I'm going to put it in the feels real but isn't true category. And then and I might just continue to have this conversation with myself where I'm going, okay, well, they don't respect me a lot. Is that really true? Well, what feels true is that it feels like they don't. Okay. All right. So that might be true, that it really feels like they don't, but is it really true that they don't a lot? And this is the part where I actually like to bring in some evidence that they do respect me. Building upon what evidence you already have can be a really powerful tool if you're seeing the evidence of the truth, right? You can use evidence to feed your victimhood all day long too, on the other side of the spectrum. But I'm talking about finding evidence that is truth. Okay, what is some evidence that that my children do respect me? Oh, well, last week my son got up in the morning and did the dishes without being asked or being told. Wow, I'd forgotten all about that. That's really cool. And I'm actually telling you something that actually happened in my house, which was really awesome. Okay, there's some evidence. Wow. So then I might go, okay, what's really true here? My kids are learning. My kids are young and they're still developing. And sometimes they forget. Sometimes in their youth and lack of understanding or maturity, they don't want to work. They want to play, right? And that's just where they are in their development. So do you see how I'm kind of just gradually connecting, I'm acknowledging what's real, what feels real, but through this conversation I'm having with myself, I'm connecting to what's really true. Does anyone have any questions on that before we move on? Okay, awesome. All right, and then the next thing in this discernment, okay, place, in observation, you're trying to discern. You're trying to discern what belongs to you and what doesn't. We are empathic beings. I don't know if some of you are familiar or not familiar with energy work. The term empath is thrown out a lot. And I find it interesting that, you know, people say, well, I'm an empath. And I'm like, good for you. That's awesome. You know, I mean, the truth is we're all empaths, right? I haven't met a single person in my entire career of doing this that isn't an empath in some way or another. We just might experience it differently. There's a whole spectrum of different types of empaths. And I believe that as divine beings, we are empathic because it's our innate need to connect with people and love people and grow with people, and that creates that need, that empathy. And also just on a science level, when you're connected to someone on any level, physically or emotionally or mentally, whatever, your energy collides with theirs. There's a ripple effect impact that happens from person to person. And so you can't not be affected by someone else's energy. And sometimes if we're in a space of, if we've developed a lot of codependency patterns, or I call it savior complex, which is kind of that, it's totally part of codependency. It's this need to fix things or to fix other people or to avoid conflict. Like there's a fear of the discomfort of conflict, and so we want to avoid that, and so we want to fix things, right? And so we take on other people's energy. We take on their emotions. We take on their beliefs. We take on whatever it might be they're dealing with in that effort to connect with them, in that effort to make sense or to dissolve the conflict, to create resolution so we don't have to feel uncomfortable anymore. I mean, I'm sure there's more reasons why that empathy happens. Sometimes it happens just out of pure love. You know, we have that ability to just, oh man, that really hurt, and I'm so sorry. And then we might unconsciously take upon that hurt onto ourselves as sort of this, you know, in the scriptures it talks about, you know, mourn with those that mourn, and lift one another's burdens. Well, I think we've misunderstood what that means. It doesn't mean that we take it on as if we were Jesus. You know, we're not Jesus. He already did that, right? And we don't have to take that upon ourselves. We can cry with them without actually carrying that same energy and those beliefs with us. And so we get to discern what is ours, what isn't ours. And the next thing is to discern whether are we in the present moment, or are we dealing with the past? Are we dealing with the future? The only thing that's really true is what's happening in the present moment. I know that might sound strange to you. We're talking about what's true in this moment, not what's like overall true. I know that things have happened in the past that are true, and they actually did happen. I'm not discounting that. But when we're in observation and we're trying to discern what's truth and what isn't truth, we have to connect with what, are we in the present moment energy, or are we in worry of what's happening in the future? If we're in worry energy about what's happening in the future, that hasn't happened yet. So really, it's not real or true. And so if it's in the past, it's already happened. It's out of your control. There's nothing you can do to change that. And so it's not true in this moment. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions about that discernment? Okay. So the whole point of this observation without shame or judgment, we want to bring everything into the present moment and really clarify, like, okay, right here, right now, what's true? Okay. All right, the second aspect of awareness I want to touch on besides discernment is absolute 100%, 200% transparency and honesty with yourself. You cannot really fully effectively discern right from wrong, truth from false, and observe without shame or judgment unless you are willing to be 100% transparent and honest. I've worked with a lot of addicts throughout the years, and a lot of pornography, those addicted to pornography and things like that. And when that shame is taking over them, it's really difficult for them to be fully transparent with themselves and fully honest with how deep they've gotten into their addiction and how they're actually choosing to show up in that. And until I've noticed that those who really know how to be fully transparent are the ones that are healing, the ones that are making real progress and moving forward. And the same goes for anyone. As long as that shame is just running your life. So the number one aspect of really learning to be fully transparent and honest with yourself is doing a shame check. And just literally checking it at the door and saying, I'm sorry, you're not welcome here because you're not going to help me see what's true here. Okay, so the number one aspect of transparency and honesty is checking the shame at the door. Number two is making a conscious choice into love. And that might feel really difficult in certain situations. Like you might be feeling the shame and the disappointment and just the utter despair and grief of what you've chosen or what is happening in your life, that it might feel really difficult to choose love. So something that really helps me in those situations when it feels really hard to choose that is these words. Even though I'm feeling so much just deep despair, or, really describe how you're feeling. Don't spare anything. Even though I'm feeling ... I choose to completely love and forgive and accept myself. And this is I'm going to give credit where credit is due. This is a script that you can find in EFT, which is Emotional Freedom Technique. It's the tapping technique. It's an awesome way of shifting energy. And you might change that verbiage to fit yourself, even though I'm just really ticked off right now. And it feels really hard to connect to love. I want to feel love. I want to connect to love. And so maybe that's where you're at, is where you just desire it. I desire to feel love. I desire to forgive, whatever it might be. And so that's enough. That's enough to kind of help you shift into that choosing love, okay? But the important thing is to kind of go with where you're at. Work with where you are in the moment. And then the last thing is to kind of check in with victimhood mentality. Am I in victimhood here? Because as long as you're in victimhood mentality, and I want to make a distinction between victimhood mentality and legitimate victimhood. Okay, there is a thing as legitimately being a victim to someone else's actions or to a situation that you had no control over, and then therefore, you didn't choose it. Someone made a choice and had an impact on you, and now you're dealing with some consequences that you never chose, and it stinks, and it takes effort on your part to heal from the impact of someone else's choice. And so that is a true thing, to be a victim. But I'm talking about victimhood mentality. When you're in victimhood mentality, you're not really willing to take personal responsibility. And that's something I actually skipped over, is after choosing love, taking personal responsibility. And so personal responsibility kind of goes hand in hand with this am I in victimhood mentality? You can acknowledge, yeah, I'm a victim to this circumstance, and it really stinks. It's uncomfortable. But victimhood mentality is when you're really in blame, or you're making excuses, you're blaming someone else, and you're not really in a space to see the lesson and see the gift in it. And so when you can kind of acknowledge the victimhood, that can kind of let go of the victim mentality of like, okay, well, that's what happened, and it's unfortunate, and I'm upset about it. But I'm not going to allow that to define me. I'm not going to let someone else control my life because they chose to show up in a way that was hurtful. All right, any questions on that? So this discernment and transparency and honesty is so vital in this awareness, taking your observation into awareness. And I'd like to take you guys through, I've created just kind of a practical guide to awareness and discernment to help clarify this, because I want everything that we do in Guru to you be able to practically apply it to your daily life. Because so often these principles are taught, but they're still kind of out there in a non-tangible form, and I really want to make this tangible for you. So I'm going to do a screen share here. Can you guys all see that? Okay, so this is just, and I'm going to have this posted on the course page in Module 3 for Week 3. So you'll have access to these, and you can print them off and have them by you. You can fold it up and put it in your wallet if you want, or your purse. Put it on your mirror in your bathroom. Have it around. Have it available to you. And it's a pretty, I don't think that, I don't claim for this to be like the best way or the only way. This is just the way that has kind of evolved, that has been discovered through my work, working with people that seems to work really well. And there might be things that you'll add to it. There might be ways that you'll simplify it. So the important thing is that you make it your own, okay? Because that's part of discovering your inner guru is, right, making those choices for yourself and deciding, okay, this is how I learn, this is what works for me, and I'll just use this as an underlying principle or guideline, okay? All right, so the first step in this practical guide is to identify the emotion or the belief or the thought or the behavior or pattern. So it's kind of that first step of observation. What am I dealing with here? Well, the first step is to breathe, right? But once we're into kind of discerning, okay, what's true, what's real, what's not true, what am I working with here? Okay, so you kind of first want to identify the emotion, the belief or the thought. And you might even go connect with where it is in your body. I haven't put this down here yet, and I'll add that to it. It's nice to just kind of, the more you can stay connected to the body with the breath and with just sort of that awareness and awareness, it keeps your spirit in your body. And it's hard for me to explain, especially those of you who may not believe in God or spirit or whatever, or life after death or life before death. You may just throw this information out, and that's okay. But I believe that we were spirit beings, divine spirit beings, before we entered this body. And so sometimes, just think about it. Our spirit lived in a really high vibrational frequency before it entered the body. And the body is amazing and miraculous in and of itself, but it's a much lower vibrational frequency than the spirit and what the spirit was used to. And so at birth, when the spirit joins the body, it's like, there's already a thug, that can happen. There can always already be some sort of trauma there. And so sometimes, and I experienced this for many years, the spirit likes to kind of go, oh no, I've had enough. And it's like, I'm out of here, And so when you're ever experiencing times when you're just really spacey, when you feel really disconnected, when you're having a hard time remembering things or formulating thoughts, or, you might have thoughts of, I don't want to live anymore, suicidal thoughts or ideation. And the body will physically start to shut down, because when your body is shut down, your spirit's not fully integrated. And you need your spirit, that high vibrational frequency of the spirit, for the body to actually function at the miraculous level that it's capable of functioning. And so when you take that breath as the first step of observation, you're not only calming your parasympathetic nervous system, and just kind of getting that fight or flight to come to more balance, you're also reminding your spirit to come back into your body. All right, we're doing this together, because your spirit's going to learn more, really fully integrated into the body, okay? And so then as you're identifying that emotion, that belief, that thought, the behavior or the pattern of behavior or pattern of thought, you might identify as specifically a pattern, something that keeps happening over time, or maybe it was just one thought in one isolated instance. You identify that and kind of identify where it is in your body. Where do I feel this in my body? And that just kind of keeps you grounded, right? Helps you connect to the present moment. Very practical tool of application here. And then the second thing is you ask, is this even mine? And this is really powerful, you guys, because, you know, as I was talking about how we're empathic beings, there might be stuff that isn't yours that you're carrying as if it were yours, and it's just cluttering the space. It's creating more chaos, and we need to just clear the clutter a little bit in this moment so that we can actually more easily connect to what's real and true for us, right? So it might feel real, like, wow, I'm feeling this emotion of irritation, but where did that even come from? You know, like I wasn't irritated 5 seconds ago, and it's not necessarily a trigger that's yours, right? And so you ask the question to yourself, is this even mine? And trust the answer, the first answer that comes to you, that yes or no answer. And if you give a no answer, then just use the breath to release it from your body. Energy moves through intention. So as you're setting the intention to let something go, if it's ready to go and there's no more to learn from it, it will just go. And it's that simple and it's that easy. And here's just a little basic lesson in quantum physics. Everything is energy, right? Every thought, every word, every emotion, you know, the things that are normally kind of intangible to us actually do have a vibrational frequency and do have some sort of matter to them, energy. And so you are literally physically releasing energy from your body that doesn't serve you. Okay? And so the breath is just that simple way to help you do that. So you can use the breath, or you can say in your mind or out loud, return to sender. You know, I think of the song from the 50s or 60s, return to sender, right? Just, you know, make it fun. Let it go. Say, return to sender in full consciousness. This doesn't belong to me. If you believe in Jesus, you might say, I give this to Christ, you know, or you might send it to the earth. Use the breath, again, to help the body shift. And you might find yourself that you have responses like yawning, or suddenly you need to yawn because you've set that intention to release it. That's normal, and that's your body, not your body saying it's tired. It's your body saying, oh, we need more oxygen here so that the body can actually shift with the spirit to that higher frequency. All right, so if it's not yours, you just want to clear the clutter of what isn't yours. If the answer is yes, if you ask that question, is this mine? Then here's a guide and some questions that you can possibly ask yourself to move forward, okay? What feels real? All right, we've already talked about this. Acknowledge the experience. What are you experiencing? And try to be as specific as you can be. You know, for example, I'm mad at my children because they're not doing the dishes, and I have a big pile of dishes in my sink, and I'm teaching a class today, and this happened a few days ago because I taught a Reiki class, and there was a huge pile of dishes in the sink, and I was feeling frazzled, I was feeling overwhelmed, and I wanted a clean house for when these people came to my house. And so I was feeling irritation, and then the thoughts might start to come, man, they have no respect for me. And so write down everything that comes to mind connected to that irritation, okay? And then acknowledge it. All right, this is what feels real. I might breathe with it for a minute. I might sit with it for a minute and just love on it for a minute. You know, our human nature is to want to get out of discomfort, right? Like, oh, this is uncomfortable. Let's run away. But what if you made a conscious choice to acknowledge that, what feels real, and experience that, okay? All right, so the next question would be, what part of what feels real is 100% truth, okay? And you start to, and we've kind of already talked about this a little bit today. And then the next question is, what part of what feels real is not truth? And you're just kind of starting to create your categories of truth and not truth. And then the next question might be, all right, what needs my love and attention the most? Another question would be, I want this. Is this something that I want to stay here? If this is mine, if this is truly my irritation that I've chosen or that I'm experiencing because of a trigger based in past trauma or something, is it something that I want to stay? Yes or no, right? Does this serve the highest good? Okay, so it might not be about what I want or don't want. What's for the highest good? What's going to bring the most clarity, the most joy, the most love, the most movement, so that I can be free to create what I want? And then that last one would be, is this ready to go? Is this ready to be released? So when you're clear on what those things are and what's ready to go, simply use your intention and the breath to release what no longer serves. Some of you might find it useful to use scripts. Like for me, I'm all about efficiency. So it's like when I identify it, it almost leads simultaneously with that acknowledgement and that clarification of what I know needs to come, because I've been doing this a long time. But in the beginning, it might be helpful to kind of have a script or something to help facilitate this release. So here's the one that I've listed here that might be helpful. It's my intention to release ... say emotion or belief or whatever it might be, or programming, or this habitual pattern of anger in these situations, right? From all parts of my physical, mental, and spiritual bodies, on every layer and level throughout all dimensions of time and space. Because you guys, we are not just linear beings. We are, I believe that God knows no time or space, and even though here on this planet we kind of are subject to linear time and space, we don't have to, we're not really, you know, there's aspects of the emotions and the thoughts that we feel are actually can be trapped in multiple dimensions throughout all time and space. Think about, like, as even from the womb, you might have had trauma in the womb because you empath emotions from your mother, that things that she was experiencing during that time, or words that you heard your father say. Infants in the womb fetuses have ears, and they can hear at a certain point in time. And so you're kind of covering all your bases there when you say that, from all parts, you know, because we're physical, mental, spiritual, emotional beings, right? Covering your bases. And then I like to add, I release this, or I do this with gratitude through the pure love of Christ, if that's, you know, something that you want to do, or through the power of unconditional love. But that gratitude is really a powerful thing. It moves energy unlike anything that I've experienced. Gratitude and love just really create a lot of movement. It raises the vibrational frequency quickly, and just creates more possibility and freedom to create what you want ultimately, right? All right, any questions on that? So step one is identify what it is, what you're dealing with. Number two, is this even mine? If it is, then you can kind of go through those questions to further determine how ready it is to go, and to sort of clarify what you want to create into the future, right? You're taking that awareness to a whole new level. And then step three is what to do for those things that need love and attention. Okay, so when you've identified what's truth and what's there, and if it's not going as easy as your intention and the breath, then there might be more work that's needed. There might be some love and attention that needs to be given to these things, especially when you're dealing with past trauma or really deeply ingrained thoughts and belief programming that maybe you inherited from your family culture, your religious culture, or just you've heard the same phrase a lot over and over and over, and you kind of created a neural pathway in your brain that is very deeply ingrained, and so it causes kind of the same reaction in those situations over and over again. And so they might just need some more attention. So here are just some ideas. Sit with them and really feel them. I've already mentioned this. Cry it out. This is loving what is. Breathe into it. Let the energy move. Resist the temptation to run away from it, to brush it under the rug, to suppress it, or to avoid, right? Because it's uncomfortable. You know, we judge, in human nature, we judge uncomfortable as bad. And I don't know why, but I'm feeling to kind of share this in context of religious culture. When we think about our relationship with God and intuitive thought and connecting to inspiration and personal revelation, I think oftentimes we think about the Holy Spirit and how he's the comforter, right? And so if it's comfortable, then I must be getting an answer of truth from the Spirit. And consider the possibility that sometimes we feel discomfort because we need that to open our eyes to the truth. So just because it's uncomfortable does not mean it's wrong or not true. And just because it feels good does not mean it's true. And so this is kind of something I would like you to consider when you're learning the skill of discernment and awareness, is keeping that in mind, that what might feel good isn't necessarily good and true. What feels uncomfortable isn't necessarily bad. Okay? So as you sit with things and really feel them, first of all, it gives it permission to be seen and permission to move. Again, I bring this metaphor up a lot because I just think it's so perfect. I think, think of those parts of you like a little child who maybe fell on the playground or got hit by another kid on the playground, and they come running to you for attention, and they're crying and they need attention. The healthiest way to handle it is to acknowledge that child's pain, right? If you read child development and psychology and things like that, it's really toxic and really damaging to a child's psyche and brain development to discount what they're feeling, or to brush it off, or to tell them to suck it up, buttercup, right? Or spank them on the bum and say, go play, you're fine, right? To invalidate. And so the healthiest way to handle that child hurt is to maybe sit them on your lap and tell me about it. What are you feeling? And then you just sit with them and you hold them and you let them cry it out. So do the same for yourself. There's parts of you that are still little, that maybe when you were little had a trauma, and that part of your brain is maybe not fully developed yet. And until you're able to really feel it and breathe into it and let the energy move, it's going to be difficult for you to move forward from there and really create a new neural pathway in the brain that is actually healthier and will help you create what you want, or help you really clear the clutter enough to see what's true. Okay. Another way to deal with what needs love and attention is to write it out. Don't spare anything. Have a journal maybe specifically dedicated to feeling and to acknowledging those thoughts and what's going on. Get it down on paper. There's sort of this thing that if you're dealing with inner child stuff, if you can tell that it's a part of your little girl or little boy self, you might write with your left hand. And some say that your left hand is what accesses those parts of you. The next thing would be to talk it out. And be cautious with this, because it's not always helpful to talk it out with another person. Make sure that it's really a trusted, someone that won't interrupt you, someone who won't project their own feelings onto you, that you feel safe, won't judge it, but will just hold space of listening. So I find it useful to actually not really use another person unless I really know that they could show up for me in that full listening, non-judgment space. So I'm literally talking it out to myself. And you might see me, if you ever drive up and see me by my car and I'm talking away and no one else is in the car, you know I'm processing something, because I'm talking to myself and I'm the crazy lady, but I don't even care. So talk specifically to that emotion, to that thought, to that belief. Say, hey, anger, I see you, I hear you. And you're manifesting, say, the physical symptom, like, oh, ouch, my hip has been hurting. Hip, all right, I see you. I'm listening. What do you want to teach me today? All right, and give it a voice. If it's your inner child, let your inner child talk and express itself on its terms. Okay, on the terms of where, the age. If you're 5-year-old, let your 5-year-old talk like a 5-year-old, right? So, and then as the trusted listener for yourself, express love and acknowledgement and understanding in return. Like, I'm so sorry you feel that way. Man, that sounds really difficult, right? And then another thing you can do is call in an advocate, living your path. You might feel like you can't process this by yourself, so you might call in Jesus or Heavenly Mother or a grandmother or grandfather, or You might call in a spouse that you know can show up for you in that love. If your spouse can't do that for you and isn't safe in that way, don't call them in. So I usually call someone that's not living because that just feels usually safest to me. And then the last thing is make it right. Right? Something might need love and attention in the sense that you just need to do. In religious culture, it's called repentance and forgiveness. Right? Apologize or make amends with anyone that you hurt or offended. Okay? All right, step 4. We're coming down to the wire here. What do you want to create into the future? Okay, so we get to ultimately to a point of all right, I'm ready to create something. I've identified it, I've loved on it, and I'm ready to create something different next time. Okay, so what do you want to create into the future? Determine your desired response for next time. So I remember as a little girl that I made a decision really young, the kind of man that I wanted to marry. And there were certain things that were really important to me. So I kind of decided ahead of time, and man, I ended up with someone so much better than I ever imagined. And so there's power in determining beforehand what you will do in the next time. So, okay, next time my kids leave dishes in the sink or don't follow through on something they say they're going to do, I'm going to choose to take a breath, and I'm not going to act in anger next time. But I'm going to try to seek to understand before I make a judgment of why they didn't do that, right? So I'll determine my desired response for next time. And then I might choose a new belief to ground me in what is true. Okay, my old belief that I loved on and acknowledged was that I don't feel good enough. Okay, what's the new belief that is true? Like, the truth is that I am enough, that I am a divine daughter of God whose worth is not dependent upon what I do or what I accomplish. It just is because that's who I am, right? So then I connect to that belief of what is true, that I am more than enough, right? That I am a divine daughter of God, or whatever it is, whatever words work for you. And then another idea is to work with the level you are currently. Okay, and we've kind of already touched on this. So if you're not at a space where you can say, I am enough, you might say the words, I want to feel like I'm enough. I want to believe that I am enough. Like, I think I'm enough, and or I'm in the process of fully believing that I am enough. You understand where I'm going with this? I used to be part of a personal development seminar. I was one of their top facilitators and speakers. And one of the things that kept coming up a lot that just would kind of, I don't know, there was just sort of this twinge of something's not right here, where the belief that, was all about clearing limiting beliefs, the false beliefs that hold us back, and then replacing it with new beliefs, right? Kind of traditional breakthrough mentality where it's like, all right, we don't want these beliefs, we want these beliefs. And the beliefs that were always come up with or suggested by head facilitators were these absolute, like, I am a millionaire. Okay, so if you're wanting to eliminate scarcity, well, no, you're not a millionaire. That's not really a reality. But I desire to be a millionaire. And I, so you might not be ready to make that statement and call forth something that isn't real for you into creation. It's not a bad thing to say I'm a millionaire, because ultimately you might attract that, right? If you really believe that. But if you're not ready to believe that, then you don't need to go there yet, because then you're going to be feeling like you're lying to yourself, and so it's not going to sink in. And so connect with where you are, like work with the level that you are. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? All right, and the last idea is to celebrate, you guys. Like, pat yourself on the back, smile, do a victory dance. Like in the car, I might like, oh, I totally just observed this without shame or judgment, and I got clear on the truth, and man, I'm awesome, and I might just do like a little like boogie down in my car, or I might just say, thank you for that lesson. I'm so grateful that I chose to observe that and give time to that so that I could change the outcome into the future, so that I could actually create something I want versus be stuck in the hamster wheel of what I don't want in this unconscious with the face of reaction all the time. And so celebrate, or maybe write down what you learned, journal it. Hey, what was the lesson that you learned? And how do you want to move forward into the future? So celebration can look a lot of different ways, but the point of celebration is you're locking it in. You might even, in the seminar world that I used to participate in, was making a statement and saying it out loud and saying it with conviction. So you might say, I am enough. You know, you might stand up and you might really connect to the emotion of the truth and say your new belief, or whatever that looks like for you. That's celebration. And the celebration is such an important component to all of that. Okay, so that is all we have for today. I'm going to make some edits to that and then put it on the page. Does anyone have any questions or comments before we close for today? Okay, awesome. I'm going to give you some homework. And the homework is just to keep doing what you're doing. Finish the reboot and reset for success. Go through that. Continue using the skill of observation. And then this week, if you feel ready, take it to the next level and use this guide, practical guide, to help you take that observation to the next level of awareness and discernment. Okay? So I love you guys. You guys are amazing gurus, and I love watching your journey and discovering what has already been there and learning how to cultivate the skills to really tap into your inner guru. Dave, did you have a question?
Well, no, just a statement.
Awesome.
Cindy, I've been listening to Loving What Is, and it was very helpful for going over today's stuff. It's the book you suggested. It's been very
So just
helpful.
a reminder to read that book by Byron Katie, Loving What Is, that I recommended on week 1.
Yeah, it's covering a lot of things you're covering also. It's helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, she's got some really powerful questions to ask yourself that really get to the root of the truth. So I love it. All right, awesome. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you at the Q&A on Friday at 7 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. And have fun creating this week and observing. Love you guys. Bye.
Love you. Bye.